Hello and welcome to another episode of my Let's Play a World of Tanks. Right now we're looking at my barracks here and my hundreds of trained tankers. Yes, but anyway, that's besides the point. Okay. Everyone has wanted to see my garage for a while. There's not really much to it, but let's take a look at it real quick and see what there is in there. Right now I have my BT2, obviously a elite tank. I have it for certain scouting missions coming up. I have a T-3455 I'm working on, KV-5 that I'm almost done with, the SU-100 with the awesome gun that I'm working on, Leopard that's elited, and that's just going to be a scout for fun. I might just upgrade the crew 100% and see where I can go with it. The completely 100%ed Panzer Kampfwagen 4, which I'm going to end up selling eventually as soon as I get this crew trained up to 100% on their specialties. The DB, which I'm still going to be working on. The Stug, which I'm just doing until they get to 100%, and I'll switch to the Jagdpanzer 4. The Hummel, which I just picked up, something new to do. The M7, tiny tank of awesomeness. Ooh, I forgot to accelerate crew training. There we go. It's pretty cool for a tier 5. I probably will end up selling it though. I really don't see any use for it. The Sherman, Easy 8, awesome tank. I can get the T20 now, but in the meantime I'm going to try and train up their abilities first. The M6, which I just got the 90mm on, makes a world of difference. The Slugger, which I just got the 90mm on, also makes a world of difference. And the M41, which I'm still working on to get up to par. So, now that you've all seen my garage, or the tanks that are in it, I have tons of open space that I need to fill it with tanks, as you can see. But the slight problem is right there. I don't have much in the way of credits, so it's going to be a while before I can fill it up. I did have a near 2 million credits by spending on the Hummel and upgrading all that stuff, and then I put gear in the KV here, just to I'm going to keep the KV. I absolutely love this thing. So anyway, how about we go over some tanks, go through my tech trees, see, give a little review of each tank. It's been long overdue, and I need to go through them all. Alright, so let's start with the Russian tree here. First, we'll go with the top, work our way down, come back, work our way down, and then work our way down the AT tree. So, the MS-1. It is a great little tank. It is actually one of my favorite tier 1 tanks. When it's fully upgraded, it is a complete beast, and probably is a little better than the other two. At least that's my personal opinion. But I certainly like it. With the gun, the MS-1 modernized with the 45, seems to be the best combination. Throwing the engine and tracks on there, obviously, comes a really, really nice tank. So, from there, we work our way to the heavy tree, the T-26. The T-26 is a great tank as well. It is one of the heaviest tier 2 tanks in the board. It has a great gun with the 37 ZIS-19. It'll take out any other tier 2. Of course, I skip past these, which I do not need, but when you throw on the engine, the tracks, and the turret, it becomes a really nasty beast. It's one of the better tier 2s, I feel, especially on the Soviet side, but in general it's one of the heavier ones, has a lot of armor. There are better than it, but I certainly did like it. So, from the T-26, I highly recommend you upgrade the gun on it. You don't need the turret, you don't need any of that stuff. It's a quick pathing down over to the T-46. So, what does the T-46 have to offer? T-46, which I do not have a picture of for some odd reason, is just an alright tank. It's kind of one of those things where you gotta play it to get onto the next tank. The upgraded gun, the 45, I feel is actually better than the 76, for the simple fact that the 76 is slightly slower. It's only 15 per minute, where it does decent damage. But this is 30 rounds per minute. It's better penetration, half damage, but I'm firing faster. I'm firing twice as fast, and I'm also doing more penetration. So that's why I went with the 45 for it. But anyway, go through that. It's an alright tank. Not my favorite, but it worked, I guess. It's kind of one of those things you gotta put up with. But that leads to the T-28. Now, T-28, I will say, is one of the better tier 4s, especially for the simple fact that you have this nice 57mm ZIS-4. That is an excellent, excellent gun. That is what you put on the T-34. I highly recommend getting it. It makes this tank so much better, and just it becomes a powerful tier 4 that should be a tier 5 with this gun. Of course, there's the 85mm, which is not bad either, but I personally think that the 57 is better at this tank because of the different enemies you're going to be facing. It's a much quicker rate of fire with the ZIS 4, pretty decent damage, amazing penetration, great accuracy. You can never go wrong with it. It really does set this tank apart from the rest of the tier 4s. Now, onto the KV, which is probably my favorite tank. The KV has so many different options, you can play it so many different ways. My personal favorite right now is the 107, the Sniper Derp. It is such a great gun at long range and close range. It can fire, I believe it's 10 rounds per minute. It has very good accuracy, very good penetration, and excellent damage. The 152 would definitely be my next choice. I absolutely love the derp gun for the simple fact it is hilarious when you hit an opponent and they just go up in smoke and there's nothing they can do. It is a fun tank to play. I will probably end up keeping it and making it just one of those tanks I always come back to and playing for no reason, just because of how fun and entertaining it is to use both of these two guns here with the KV-2 turret. Now, I highly recommend you get the tracks, then the engines. Well, you need the track, obviously. If you can, get the engine, but you're definitely going to need to go over here and get the turret and guns to make it any decent. But you need the tracks first. I really love this tank, highly recommend going through it. Now, after that, I have not unlocked any other things yet. I have the KV-3 unlocked. I haven't purchased it yet, though, so I don't know how it plays. The KV-1S is probably going to be my next thing, as I have just about 5,000 short of getting it. And then I'll slowly work my way to the S51. Of course, go down this tree, see what happens, and eventually I'll get my way over there. So, back to the MS-1, we have the option of going the medium tanks, the BT-2. The BT-2 I already have a current one of. It is a very, very fast tier 2. Personally, not my favorite, but in terms of a scouting tank, if you were to scout with heavier friends that you need to be faster, more agile with, BT-2 is your choice. It certainly is very quick, the way to go. I wouldn't worry about anything over here so much as just the engine and the tracks. Obviously, you would not want to place the BT-2 over the BT-7 if you could, but there's certain instances where you have to use a tier 2, which I'll get to later. The BT-7 is probably one of the fastest non-premium tanks. Either between this or the Leopard, I'd say are the two fastest. This thing really hauls. You just throw the engine on there, the tracks, the turret, and well, you kind of have to get the 37mm gun. You're just going to zoom around everyone, get to their artillery, and take it out. It is a great, great tank for scouting, and also for getting behind the enemy lines and doing some damage. So it leads to the A20. A20's alright. It's kind of just an in-between tank. It looks exactly like the hull of the T-34. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, though. And it has a few options here and there. Personally, I just went with the standard armaments here that you just needed to progress. Obviously, engine's one of my favorites to get it going. Then I believe I just went up to the 76 to the T-34, because it just seemed to be the better option to go down this branch right here. This was unlocked from previous tanks, so I wasn't too worried about it. But anyway, you upgrade the turret, you get a better gun on it, it becomes a pretty decent tank. It becomes a miniature T-34, so it's not a bad tier 4 tank. The 57mm on the other tanks certainly is a little better though, but this isn't bad if you're doing mediums. The T-34 I have completely unlocked. It is not a bad tank at all. Like I said, you put on the 57mm and it makes a huge world of difference. It becomes a sniper tank with quick rate of fire, quick aiming, great penetration, and decent damage. I had several kill streaks on this tank, but of course, anytime you see anything above a tier 6, you know, your 7s and 8s, you're probably not going to do too much to. The 57 just cannot compete, and that's just the sad way that it is. But when you throw on the tracks and the engine, you can start getting your flank shots on those tanks that you can no longer penetrate from the front, because you can zoom around them. You're not as fast as like the BT-7 or anything, but you can do some serious damage. Now, the T-34-85 is my latest. It is a really nice tank. I do absolutely love it. I cannot wait to get the 100mm idiot gun over here. That's going to be my next upgrade. As you can see, I'm about halfway there. Well, not even. A little under halfway. It's going to eventually lead to the T-34, and the KV-13 will be the two that I go from. But I think this 100mm on the current platform that it is should make for a very strong tank, especially at the tiers that it gets placed into. Being a tier 6, you can get a range of 3s to, 3s to 9s, but still, you do see a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Still, with the 100mm, it should stand up to pretty much anything. That takes us out of the medium tree, though, and puts us into the anti-tank. So we go back to the MS-1, it is unlocked all the way down the entire bottom path of the guns. So, starting with the AT-1, it is alright. It's halfway decent armor, the starting gun on it is alright. The 57 ZIS 8S, though, is excellent for a tier 2. It kind of becomes a little cheesy. It is a slow, very slow tank, I'd say. Not bad. The gun on it's pretty good when you get that 57 on there. It's not bad though. I do like it. The SU-76 was not that good. It sadly is one of those that you just have to grind your way through. It does have a 57mm ZIS too, which I never bothered to unlock, but if you look at it, your 76mm and your 57, they're roughly the same. It was just about, well, I should take that back. The 76mm had less penetration, but more damage. Obviously the 57 had better penetration, more damage, slightly better rate of fire. But because of the rate of fire difference not being noticeable, I went with the 76mm. Now, in its tier, a tier 3 TD, it's not bad. But when you get stacked up against higher level stuff, that 76mm is not going to cut it. And it really does start to irritate you, and it's a tank that you have to grind through to get to the next one. SU-85B, though. SU-85B is a great gun, or a great tank rather, I'm sorry. The 57mm on it didn't get it. The 85-2 versus the 85B versus the 85A, it's a toss-up. They're both about the same, slightly better penetration, but I didn't think it was worth the extra experience to get it when I could just get the SU-85 for relatively the same cost. Now, starting off with the ZIS 70 or the 76mm ZIS 3, it's alright at best. You're basically an up-armored version of the SU-76. Once you unlock the 85mm though, it becomes a whole new tank. You really start doing damage over every other tank that is there. It actually became one of my favorite tier 4 TDs. It is very strong with that 85mm. You will take out a lot of tanks. Even higher level tanks than you are, you're doing some pretty decent damage to. I of course put in the engines to make it go a little faster, and it helped. So, that brings us to the SU-85, which also gets stuck with a 76mm, which again is garbage. It really is not a fun gun to go with. You have to grind your way through it. When you get the 85mm though, it becomes a pretty decent tank. I actually did like it. If I had the time and the experience and wanted to stay with the tier 5 TD, I probably would have went with this 107mm, because then it's just like using the 107 that's on the KV. You become very accurate, very deadly. But it was about the same cost for the SU-100, which I would have rather have than the 107, which is not used on any other tank. That's the important part about this gun, is that it is not used anywhere else. So I didn't want to spend the extra time with this tank and this gun if I didn't have to. So, slight grind through it, not bad. When you get the 85, it really does start to open up and become a better tank. The SU-100, on the other hand, is amazing. The only problem with the SU-100 is it starts with an 85mm that just cannot compete in the tier that it's in. I would ding and do no damage to several tanks, and I just get killed. There's very little that that gun can help with. But once you start unlocking the 100mm, you can start doing damage to lows, Tigers, Tiger 2s, anything like that. But when you unlock the 122mm, you can damage anything in the game. It is a very powerful, very accurate, very devastating cannon. The rate of fire is not so good, but what do you expect for something with that high of a caliber? It is a great gun on this tank, and obviously you have to use it to get to the 152, but it certainly made life a lot easier when I got it. I'm now doing so much better in this tank. It is much more fun to play now that I can do massive damage to any tank. People start to fear you now when you have this. So, that should cover it for the Soviet side of things. Let's move on to the Germans and go through that gigantic tree that has just been updated.